Do you have a sandals or beaches trip on the horizon, or perhaps you're considering to do so? If so, considering what you will bring to the resort and to the island is definitely a big hurdle. It's easy to get it wrong, two different directions. Sometimes it's easy to overpack and have no room to bring anything back or be charged massive penalty fees at the airport. Alternatively, on the other hand, it's also easy to arrive and not have what you need. Well, my goal in this video today is to quickly fix that and make sure that you're in good hands. Hey there, I'm Addison, founder and CEO of Reliant Destinations and MyCaribbeanLuxury.com. I want to welcome you today to this channel, Mr. TravelX. If you haven't seen any of our videos before, there are numerous videos about Sandals Beaches Resort, some specific resorts and some about the brand as a whole featured on our channel. Make sure to have a look. We are the largest channel for sandals and beaches on YouTube, and it's always a pleasure to bring you real content that you want to know.
Hi, I'm Morgan, Executive Assistant to Addison and fellow Sandals and Beaches Expert. Before we dive into this exciting video today, I would love to encourage you to take a quick peek at the description and comments below. There you will find so much information that you don't want to miss. From a beautiful must-see digital brochure to further info about this topic and contact details for Addison and the team, you will certainly find it worth a moment of your time.
Yes, indeed. You can reach out at hello@reliantdestinations.com anytime you need. Also, if you did happen to book in the last 14 days over the phone or online, make sure to still get in touch to hear about our complimentary added value concierge services for you. But for now, let's dive into the good stuff. Are you ready? I know I am. Let's do it. Today, I'm going to cover 6 different categories of things to consider when you're thinking about packing for your trip. In category number 1, we'll talk about documents. The first one is one that often goes without saying, but the number of questions I get on this every year means it is worth mentioning, and that's passport. You need a passport to leave America, period, anywhere. You need a passport for the Caribbean, even if it's the Bahamas very close. There is another nuance with this, however, that many of you will not be aware of, which is that historically you have been required to have 6 months or more validity left on your passport from when you are returning. So what I mean by this, for example, if you're leaving Jamaica, on whatever day you're leaving, there should be 6 months remaining. Now, at the time of this video, there are a few islands, including Jamaica, which have given exemption to this rule, but it still is in play for many of the Caribbean islands and could come back anytime for the other ones that have the exemption. So I always say it is a safe bet to just assume that you need 6 months or greater left on your passport when you travel. In terms of flying itself, you should always make sure to check in either the night before or earlier in the day if possible before you board your flight. In this digital era, I do recommend that to use whatever airline's app. Every single airline now has an app, and you can have a mobile boarding pass, which is a great and easy way to make sure you're not losing a piece of paper. It's also great to have it on a mobile device. So for example, when you are at immigration in the country you land at, if they ask information about your flight, you don't have to go and try to find a ticket that you might have misplaced since you boarded the aircraft and thought you might not need it again. More on documents, I always recommend bringing your driver's license with you. I mean, of course, if you are driving to the airport in the first place, it is a legal requirement in most states and provinces. But more than that, it's just always a good idea to have extra identification on you. I don't recommend driving in most of these islands, and on some of these islands, your driver's license may not even be valid, but if that's something you're very passionate about, you can contact me and I can advise you the nuances of that. Nonetheless, it is good to keep your driver's license on you at all times. Next is bank cards and credit cards. Now, things have progressed on this in recent years, but it is always worth checking with your bank or your credit card provider to see if you do need to put what's called a travel notification on the card. Sometimes you do find that when you land in a destination and you use a card, it'll automatically get blocked if the bank isn't aware that you are abroad. That's a safety mechanism, of course. So that's worth considering. I do also recommend bringing cash. Now, when we're talking about Sandals and Beaches resorts, please note that all of these resorts, anything you will need, will use US dollars. So if you're watching this video from Canada or Great Britain, you definitely want to make sure that you do get your hands on some USD. If you are stateside, you want to bring cash, don't worry about converting into local currency. You can also use US dollars at the airport itself, including things like duty-free. Speaking of cards, you will I would use the word need, a credit card when you are checking in at Sandals. This is quite industry standard, whether it is picking up a rental car or most hotels and resorts, you have to put a card down for incidentals where a hold is placed along it. At Sandals, it's less about damages and more about the fact that you have a card on file. So if you want to spend, for example, in retail or at the Red Lane Spa, you have a card already associated and don't have to carry anything around with you in resort. The reason a credit card is preferred and asked for is a credit card can have a temporary authorization on it. For example, if you don't spend anything at all during your stay and just use the all-inclusive elements, that can drop off almost instantly when you leave. If it is on a debit card, it's more complex and has to be refunded and properly taken out first. It gets kind of complicated, which is why a credit card is preferred if possible. Speaking of credit cards, I'm a massive fan of the American Express Platinum card. I've put a link in the description below where there's actually an offer right now at the time of this video. Offer might change, but on the link I will put down below in the description, I'll put one of the comments as well. There is a promotional offer for 150,000 American Express points on this Amex Platinum card, which is a card really focused on travel. I mention this for a couple of reasons. If you haven't booked your airfare yet, for example, if you were to book your airfare on this card, you would get lots of extra points, but more than just points, you would get some air protections associated with that card as well. If you haven't yet paid off your Sandals trip or haven't booked it yet, one of the other nice things is with this offer like this, if you were to use the Amex Platinum card, you would definitely unlock that 150,000 or whatever it happens to be at the time point bonus, which that alone is enough to cover international flights for a future trip anywhere in the world, maybe even a much reduced cost on a return stay in the future to Sandals or somewhere else. Being as you need a credit card anyways, if you don't have one or if you're looking to maybe get some rewards and some money back for what you're paying for your Sandals trip, something like the American Express Platinum card makes sense. I just mention it because I love it. It's something that I use personally for all of my travels, and it also gives you access to airport lounges. So for example, when you are at your home airport waiting to fly to Sandals, instead of going and buying an overpriced burger sitting on hard seats waiting for your flight, you can actually have nice complimentary food and drink and a nice sofa in a lounge somewhere, which is a much enhanced experience on your way to tropical paradise. So there's lots of different options when it comes to credit cards, but being as we were talking about cards, I thought it was worth a quick mention. The final item on documents is I just recommend bringing a hard copy of your final invoice and voucher with you. It's just good practice to do. Chances are you don't need it, but it is possible that if you are, say, an immigration, that they want to see proof of where you're staying. It's also possible that maybe you're asked for it by a Sandals representative at the desk. Everything typically you don't need it for, you just give your last name, but it's always good to have in tow just in case. Oh, and if you are coming for a special occasion, if you redeem some benefit, make sure to bring the associated document with you. So for example, if you're getting married, remember you need to bring all the documents you've talked about with your wedding consultant with you. Also, if you have some special promotion, you need to bring the proof for that promotion with you as well. And a final document nuance, which is just worth a very quick mention. If you are going to beaches and you happen to be a single parent, or maybe not a single parent, but you are taking one of your children alone with you and one parent is staying at home, please know that it is a legal requirement to have permission from the other parent to take your child abroad. There can be a lot of complexities with this, and this also goes for maybe if a grandparent is taking their child with them to beaches, that sort of thing. If you want to talk more about that, just get in touch, hello@reliantdestinations.com. I won't talk about it more in this video, but I just want to mention so that no one ever gets surprised by that requirement. Next up, number 2, a very necessary one, which is toiletries. Let me first mention the toiletries that you don't really need to bring. Unless you're undergoing a specific hair treatment or something very special or have something that you need for your particular hairstyle, overall, I would say that 95% of people, both males and females, will be more than satisfied by what exists already for you in your room or suite at Sandals or Beaches. Yes, so in your room or suite, there is shampoo, conditioner, body lotion, hair nets, all those kinds of things which are part of the Red Lane Spa products, which is the luxury spa there at Sandals and Beaches. I've always enjoyed these, and in fact, I even use these products at my home on my day-to-day. Of course, in a room and suite, there will be endless towels. There are also containers, for example, for feminine hygiene products and that sort of thing. But in terms of what you do need to bring, yes, you need to bring obviously any feminine hygiene products, which you do need. You would also want to bring, of course, toothbrush, toothpaste, toothpaste, sun cream, deodorant, these kind of things. Also some mouthwash. Sometimes some of the rooms and suites can have mouthwash, but not always. I also really do recommend bringing lip balm. And this doesn't just go for the ladies, but also for the guys. I highly recommend getting a high SPF lip balm. So of course there are nice tinted ones where you can wear like regular lipstick, but also for guys there are just normal like chapstick styles with high SPF, which are really great to make sure that you're not getting burnt. And I have to say as well, it does help when there is wind along the beach there in terms of wind chapping. I of course also recommend bringing any shaving equipment you might need, both for the gents and for the ladies. If you are someone who uses an electric shaver, please note that not all the bathrooms have your standard plugs in them. Some of them do require the traditional shaver plugs. So that could be a good little quick Amazon purchase for you. I'll also pop a link in that description below for you. That is a good idea to bring one of those just in case. Maybe you don't use it for this trip because your particular room or suite has one, but for some future trip, even if it's domestically in the USA, for example, you might need one. Also cruise ships, those type of things, it's just good to have one of those. Oh, it's also worth just quickly saying that when it comes to hair dryers are notorious for blowing out sockets, not just in the Caribbean, but anywhere around the world. You of course can bring one with you and try, but generally speaking, unless it's a really special one that's close to your heart that you have to have, I do recommend leaving that at home. There is one that works very well. I'm someone that uses a blow dryer, so is my wife, my assistant, many people, and we've never had any issues with the hair dryers that come as standard in the rooms and suites. Category number 3 is one which I need to pay a lot of attention to, and that's electronics. Hopefully it'll be much more simple for you than when I travel and set up a whole studio and bring drones and all that fun, but it's always worth thinking about what electronics you want to bring and how those will work when you're in a different destination and in resort. A couple of ones that people really want to think about. First is a phone. Everyone is going to want to bring their phone, but make sure you bring your charging equipment with it. I recommend bringing one that plugs into just a USB. I also recommend that you do more than that and bring one that plugs into a wall from it. If you are using an upgraded phone that uses, for example, like a Type-C USB or that sort of thing, I do recommend bringing one of those little converters. In fact, I literally bought one last night before filming this video. All it does is it just takes the normal USB and it converts it over. It's good to have those. You're probably going to need them for the next few years in life anyways until everything gets on the same page with technology, so it's just good to have. I also recommend considering bringing a battery pack with you. You don't really need it for the resort, but it's something good to have, especially when you're traveling, when you're in the airport, when you're trying to go on the way home, maybe when you're in your transfer between the resorts and the airports and all the kinds of things like that. And being as many people call it different things, by battery pack, I do mean portable charger. They come all the way from tiny things to big ones. There's a lot of options. There is a recommended kind of shopping list and recommendations that I do have, and it's a whole list of things. And again, I will have that for you to have a browse, including some recommendations on that front for you below. When it does come to charging your phone, we talk about the cable or the lead, depending on where you're from. That cable or lead, I do recommend that you do bring more than one, because as we know, even though things are getting slowly better on the tech world, those still tend to break, and you don't want to be stranded without your phone or having to go and purchase one for way too much money at airport duty free. So definitely just bring a couple extra ones with you for $1 while you can. Hopefully you don't have to work the whole time during your vacation like I typically do, but if you do need to bring a laptop or a tablet with you, make sure to think about how that will plug in and charge as well. On that note, quick side note, the Wi-Fi is getting better and better and is generally pretty good at Sandals Beaches resorts. All rooms at any tier do include your good Wi-Fi. There's also a premium package. At the time of this video, it runs in the $70 range for an entire week. With Wi-Fi there, I have done live streams, lots of FaceTiming, that sort of thing, and it's hosted it pretty well. Sometimes there can be some spotty places as you go, especially along the beach, that sort of thing, but overall, Wi-Fi is getting very good. Talking about phones, electronics, and tech, it is worth thinking in terms of your SIM card. More and more plans do now include unlimited, or at least with a good data cap, in terms of using your phone abroad. I do recommend having a look and seeing, and it is just always a good idea when you're traveling, if there are two of you traveling together, that at least one of you will have some type of phone service on whatever island you're visiting. For commercial purposes, I don't want to shout out any particular carriers, and things can change on this, but I will will say the carrier that I use is very affordable, and every single one of the Caribbean islands that I'm constantly visiting, I get more or less unlimited data and phone calling when I am there. So that's an amazing thing to look at. There are lots of options out there. You can also buy temporary SIM cards if you need to. Next up is headphones. A lot of people have wireless headphones. Those can be great. Do note that if you happen to be on an aircraft that has entertainment available, the entertainment doesn't always connect well with wireless headphones on aircraft. So I do recommend also bringing a wired pair with you. You can buy those very cheap if you are someone that tends to use wireless earbuds. It's worth considering bringing a camera as well. Now, if you are someone that's using an iPhone, say 13 or 14, the reality is it just films so great now. I love to use mine in resorts, so you're probably good on that front. But there's also things, for example, like little cheap GoPros that can film underwater, things like that. So think about maybe if you're gonna do some snorkeling, some diving, or you want to go out along the beach, what kind of cool shots you might get if you're wanting to share it with your friends or family. So those are things which you might consider. Again, I have some recommendations for those items, which will be in that description below along that link, which I'm going to share. Back to phones for a minute. It's also worth thinking that if you will bring your phone with you around resort, maybe think about how you want to carry it. For example, if you don't have such a waterproof phone, you have it in your pocket, you enter the pool, well, I'll let you do the math on that one. There are now many protective cases you can get, some with lanyards, that sort of thing. There's tons of options out there, but it's worth kind of thinking about that to get ahead of where you might end up. The final item on the electronics category is that of what I would say are plug splitters. Some of the resorts, particularly that have more European or British influence, will have plugs of different types inside of the rooms. Now, for my North American guests that are watching this video, don't worry, you don't need to bring an adapter with you to any of the resorts. There are US plugs and also USBs in every room and suite across the entire brand portfolio of Sandals and Beaches. Rather, I recommend that, for example, if you are using a US plug, you simply buy one of those really cheap ones on Amazon. Again, I have a link for you if you wish. And it's one of those that simply turns one plug into multiple plugs. That way you have extra options and aren't having to hunt around. And number 4, we're going to now cover a little bit on the health and beauty side of things. The first one I want to mention is medicine. Make sure to pack any medicine you need and pack it in moderate doses. In terms of best practice, you should always have any medicine in its original packaging so that if you do happen to have a customs inspection, they can easily see that. Any prescription should be accompanied by the original prescription. And do note that if you are using a controlled substance, even something as common as Adderall, you definitely want to have a look at the island's requirements before bringing it. Just because something is able to be prescribed and is a controlled substance in the state does not necessarily mean that it will be allowed and will not be a criminal item when it comes to somewhere abroad, including an island in the Caribbean. All of the islands have different processes for this. So for example, if you do need to bring some medicine to an island which doesn't typically allow it, there typically are ways to do so, but you need to start planning this way in advance so you can go through the right steps with the Ministry of Health on that given island to make sure that you are being compliant. Of course, we are fed up with hearing about hand sanitizer after the pandemic, but it's always good to have some hand sanitizer with you. I do recommend bringing a hand sanitizer that has some of the moisturizing aspects to it as well, so you're not drying your hands out. You want this for a few different areas, particularly when you're flying. Think about all of the surface and contact points aboard an aircraft and in the airport. The last thing you want is to spend the first few days of your trip feeling ill because you accidentally infected yourself with the flu or a cold when you were at the airport. So that's a good idea to bring that and use that throughout your stay. In all the restaurants and that sort of thing for Sandals, they have hand sanitizer at the entrance. So when you're in resort, you don't have to worry about carrying it around with you. It's more of something you want during the travel process and maybe in a room for the beginning or end of a day. You also definitely want to pack some bug spray. Now, luckily with bug spray, there's not a lot of issues. They do wonderful non-toxic fogging inside of the resorts. I am someone that if I was to sit out in the backyard or back garden at a lot of people's house, I would be bit by a bunch of mosquitoes immediately. They love my blood. However, at Sandals, I'm pleased to say that I maybe have had 1 or 2 bites ever in all of the many trips I've stayed at Sandals and Beaches. Now, the one thing though is when you venture out, say you go on an excursion or when you go out to the beach outside the property, those are places which can't be fogged, so those are when you definitely want to hit up the bug spray. On sunscreen, I definitely recommend bringing this with you. Bring it in plenty of doses. It's my experience that however much I think I will end up using, I end up needing or using a bit more. This is something that even a lot of locals will use, so even if you have darker skin, just be aware that the sun can definitely be a bit intense and it is worth having. It can be a little deceiving at times if it happens to be overcast or you get a few moments of liquid sunshine or that sort of thing, but just know that in those moments some people burn particularly, so you definitely want to make sure you're bringing sun cream. Based off the Caribbean sun, my personal recommendation is to have SPF 50 or higher. A lot of people do like the ones with the aerosols, that way you can have it even spray and then rub it around, but just remember that aerosols typically can't be brought on board, so you definitely want to make sure you pack those. What I typically recommend is that you pack maybe 1 or 2 really large aerosol cans of your favorite sunscreen into your checked baggage for your stay, but then you also bring one of those small travel size sun creams that is compliant with bringing on board an aircraft, so you can have that in your little day bag so that when you are in resorts and you're waiting for your room to be available, particularly if you do get there early in the morning and start enjoying, that you have that on hand and don't have to go rummaging for it last minute. Of course, ladies, you have the massive category of beauty products, so things like makeup and all of that. You can, of course, buy it in the retail shops, and they have some designer brands there. It will be at a premium, so I recommend bringing whatever you wish to have with you. However, you can find in your room or suite makeup removers, so if that's one less thing you need to bring with you, that's great. An easily forgotten one, for some reason that doesn't make it into most people's baggage, is nail clippers. I definitely recommend bringing these, not just for your nails, which by the way will grow extra fast when you are in contact with salt water and pools all the time, but more than that, it's just great to have for when you have the random strings hanging off your clothes and things. It's always one of those things that when you don't have it, you need it. So it's the easy one to make sure you bring. Number 5, versatile clothing. In this category, obviously, this one probably varies the most between women and men, but it is worth considering just how you want to experience your stay. Do keep in mind, again, the temperature is always going to be warm or hot year-round. Things like sundresses are always a fantastic choice for ladies. For gentlemen, just think about what is going to be cool, comfortable clothing. When it comes to evening wear, do keep in mind that every Sandals and Beaches resort does have at least one restaurant which does have a specific requirement when it comes to your dining attire for dinner. It's quite sensible for the ladies' side without having to worry too much, so I'll focus on the male side for just a moment. So for gentlemen, here's the thing, you need to bring some long pants or trousers. Again, depending on where you're from, you need to bring these with you to the resort. I would hate for you not to be able to dine in one of the really nice places just because you left them behind. Now I know that male comfort with this does range widely. I'm someone that you'll find me in resort often even wearing a sports coat, often wearing trousers. That's my own personal preference and I'm fine with that. I also know many guys who simply do not want to wear anything but shorts during their entire stay. Just be aware you'll need to bring at least one long pair with you, but here's the thing, it doesn't have to be heavy jeans or some formal type of trousers. It can even be something, for example, like light linen long trousers, which are easily found and can be really comfortable and even cooler than a lot of pairs of shorts. I'll also have a link for that you can explore, but there's lots of options there, but just make sure that you do bring a pair along with you. The same goes with shoes. Gents, you want to bring at least one nicer pair of shoes. When it comes to that nice restaurant, you'll be asked not to wear sneakers, not to wear open toe kind of sandals unless they're nicer sandals, that type of thing. So do recommend bringing one decent pair of shoes with you. Well, ladies, you know how to pack on this category, so I'll keep going. It goes without saying that you definitely want to make sure you're packing your swimwear. Keep in mind the different types of water activities you might be doing, and if you do have a different preference of swimwear when it comes to the beach versus the pool versus water sports, that sort of thing, everyone's different, but just keep that in mind when you're packing. Undergarments, socks, those sort of things, those are things luckily that don't take up much space, but I recommend packing extra, more of those than you think you need. Keep in mind it's very hot, everyone will be sweating and glistening quite a bit when they're in resort, so you want to make sure that you definitely have plenty of those. Then you do have, of course, jewelry and accessories. Now with those, there is a safe in every room at Sandals and Beaches Resort where you can set your own password, and that is a great opportunity where if you do have some things you want to tuck in there, for example, want to put your passport in there, some jewelry, that sort of thing, so you can have your nicer jewelry for your evening attire out, but in the daytime, you don't have to carry it around with you or worry about it when you're out. In the final category, we'll just wrap it up with talking about a few miscellaneous items. I do recommend bringing a neck pillow. If you don't travel a lot, it is something where the aircraft definitely can be a little bit uncomfortable unless you happen to be all the way up in first class. But for those of us that often are in the very back in economy coach, it definitely can be useful to have a neck pillow just to make sure you're not arriving with a bunch of aches and pains when you arrive in tropical paradise. Of course, you can find overpriced options for these at the airport, and they have these for a reason. They know a lot of people want them but didn't bring them, but you can definitely get them for pretty cheap before you go, and I do recommend bringing one with you. Of course, this can depend on how long of a flight you have, how many stopovers, that sort of thing, but I definitely recommend that. And for some people who intend to try to sleep on aircraft, I'm not personally able, but I know some people that have that amazing skill, an eye mask is always a great option as well to make sure that you can actually get your sleep. Oh, and let's not forget sunglasses. Sunglasses are a great one, so whether you want to have fashion accessories with you on the sunglass side of things, or whether you just want to have a single pair to guard your eyes from the bright sun, I recommend everyone bring sunglasses for not just, the fashion, but also for your eye protection as well. Under the Caribbean sun, a sun hat is always a great idea, so there are plenty of options for that, but a sun hat, obviously, if you want to really protect yourself, a wide brim option might be something to consider. If you're also someone that enjoys relaxing a bit with a good book, packing a book or two is always a fantastic different possibility there, where you can sit maybe by the beach, at the pool, or if you're waiting at the airport for your aircraft and have a nice read of a book maybe that you haven't got around to in a while in your busy schedule. And the final one would be bring some aloe with you, some aloe vera. Hopefully you did listen to the first part about bringing sunscreen, but we all know that sometimes no matter how much sunscreen you apply, there's always the end result of being a little bit of a lobster like I always end up. So some after sun cream or some aloe vera, that will definitely help just take away any burns you have quickly and make sure that you're not miserable during your stay. So there you have it. Those are some of the most commonly asked questions about what you should pack when you're going to Sandals or beaches. Now, for any clients of Reliant Destinations, we do offer a full packing list with the check marks and all of that, which is offered to our clients. So again, if you are thinking to book a trip, make sure to get in touch, or if you booked in the last 14 days. So we'd be happy to give that out. Also, again, in that description below, there is, of course, information there, plenty you want to see, but also some links to the things we talked about, where you can find some recommendations and so on. Thanks again for choosing to watch this video today. I hope to see you maybe in resort very soon. Please remember to like and subscribe with this video, and I look forward to seeing you around the channel in the very near future. Take care now.